Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our special edition of Elevenses with the reps at Diesel Bookstore. Very special edition of our Elevenses podcast this week. Normally, we have our wonderful publishers representatives, we have our booksellers, various book people coming in to talk about new and exciting and upcoming releases. But today, we have a very special guest. We have author Christopher Buehlman with us today, who has very graciously agreed to appear on Elevenses and talk about Between Two Fires, which is going to be released on, I believe, March 3rd. And Chris is going to be in our store at Diesel on the 5th at 6:30 p.m. with Victoria Aveyard, and they will be discussing and signing Between Two Fires, as well as Chris's other books, Blacktongue Thief, Daughter's War. We'll talk all about those in a moment. And so thank you so much for being here, Chris. I'm
Thank
also
you.
joined, so thank you. And I'm also joined with Joey, who has making his appearance outside of the screen. He's normally behind the screen doing titles and putting up pictures, and he's going to join us for discussion today. I'm Debra Ginsburg from Diesel, and I'm going to introduce you now, Chris, and we're going to talk a little bit. We're going to just roll right into it. Christopher Buehlman is a comedian, a poet, a novelist, a playwright. All of these things. You grew up in St. Petersburg, Florida, and found a métier in being in Renaissance fairs as a sort of a medieval insulter. Christophe the Insulter is your persona over there. Very popular performances touring in Renaissance fairs. And then from there, you wrote plays, you various performances, and then at a certain point, you turned to writing novels. Um,
I did indeed. Yes. I wrote the whole time I was on the festival circuit, really. I mean, when I was in my 20s, I was writing comedy material and poetry. In my 30s, I got interested in playwriting. And then in my late 30s, I decided it was time to get serious about the novel thing, and I started teaching myself how to do that. Um, for the second time, I had started once before. I wrote my first draft of Those Across the River, my first novel, way back in 2001 when I was 32. But it didn't get published for another 10 years.
very common among among novelists. I do think I have to say, as a novelist myself, a writer myself since early times, that I think performing is excellent training for writing, especially what you were doing, which is you might explain it a little bit for people who are watching, what a professional insulter, a medieval insulter does exactly. But I think it's great training for writing fantasy, medieval history. Um,
Yeah, well, the title was Christoph the Insulter, Verbal Mercenary, and I started off on the lanes at Ren fairs with a sign that said "insults" on one side and "you cheap bastard" on the other, and people would pay me to insult their friends right there, like on a bridge at a Ren fair, or at a table where people are eating. Um, when I first started doing that gig, I was at the stock. So you'd put people's hands and head in the thing, and I'd insult them there. But when I got out on the road, uh, I just made a sign and did it there. I used to be known as the stocks keeper. Like, go put your uncle in the stocks, and the stocks keeper will run his mouth about him for a while. Um,
I mean,
yeah,
honestly, I think that's kind of a dream for a lot of people.
you know,
How do
you
I
know.
get that job?
Right,
Is
right.
that, is it, or
I
is it
have people.
a dress for the job you want situation?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of that. I just always found really good insult humor to be some of the funniest stuff there was. I mean, from the scene in Cyrano de Bergerac all the way through. I remember a rant Robin Williams went on in a long ago movie called The Survivors, where he's insulting Jerry Lee. Um, yeah, it just always hit me right. Um, but a common misconception about the job, I'd have people say to me all the time, "Oh, I could do that. I'm good and mean. I got good insults." And I'd be like, "Well, the real job, the real job is actually not making anybody angry. The real job is
Right.
finding this narrow aperture where what you're saying is transgressive and enough to be funny, but it's also below the line where they're actually going to feel hurt, because that's not I don't find that entertaining, and I don't like people who do. So
Right, exactly. And I think we can see a straight line between that and writing as well.
sure.
And this leads right into Between Two Fires, which you wrote in 2012. So it's been a while ago. This is your second book, Between Two Fires. And I should note, this is the book we are going to be talking about when you come visit the store. Written a long time ago, had a bit of a trajectory, and it's being re-released now with beautiful sprayed edges and new end papers and a new foreword by Joe Hill. So very excited, really beautiful, beautiful looking. But you wrote it in 2012, um, and so it's been quite a while. Um, but Between Two Fires, basically, it's 1348, and the Black Death, the plague, has ravaged France, where it takes place. And we follow a disgraced knight, a fallen knight, and a young girl on the cusp of womanhood who seems innocent but also vaguely divine. And the two of them sort of head through the countryside because her name is Delphine, and she has received a message that they need to go to Avignon. And along the way, they pick up Père Mathieu, a priest who is an
Troubled?
alcoholic.
Troubled? Let's go with
Yes,
troubled.
troubled.
It's trouble.
Um, he's troubled, and he has a secret as well, but he's very sweet. Anyway, this unlikely trio um, goes sort of on this road trip through the countryside to Avignon, but there's a greater battle going on, and which is the battle for the souls of mankind between the angels and devils. And God is conspicuously absent from this battle that's going on. So they
Yes.
encounter all kinds of um, demons and strange sight. For me, it was sort of the Canterbury Tales walking through a Hieronymus Bosch painting. That's how I felt about it.
Not bad.
Yeah.
I listened to it on audiobook, and the narrator had this very deep and gentle British accent. So,
Yes.
and it sounded like Winnie the Pooh in hell.
Right.
Like it was just
Right.
this like
So he
this
had to
very this very like gentle voice telling me these terrible images, and I was like, oh, this is so not comforting, but very nice at the same time.
That's Steve West. He's great, and I don't I don't have recent information on him, but I know that as of the time he did this, he was living in L.A. He might still be. Very good voice actor. I'll tell you an anecdote about my communication with him before he did the part. He was very conscientious. He wanted to make sure that he got pronunciations right, because there are French words and names in there, but there are also towns that I made up. Um,
Right.
so he said, can you make an audio file for me saying this list of words? And I was like, sure. But I was traveling Ren fairs. I was doing the Michigan Ren Fair at the time, and I was in a coffee shop, and it was kind of loud in there. So I took my laptop and I went into the men's room, and I got into a stall, and that's where I did it. And if you ever want to have the undivided attention of an entire room full of people, walk out of the toilet with a laptop.
Perfect. Perfect. That's a great
That's
little
a
anecdote.
record scratch moment.
That's
Exactly.
exactly what it felt
Everyone's
like.
like,
So this is so you're writing this while you're doing the Renaissance fairs, and you're immersed in medieval lore, and you've clearly done a lot of research for Between Two Fires. But the one thing I thought of while I was reading is that it seems remarkably contemporary, and I don't mean contemporary where the actual literal details of it, but the and I think this is because it's post pandemic, it's post COVID. You wrote it pre COVID, and pre COVID, and also I think pre sort of upheaval. There's a lot of upheaval globally, generally speaking,
Yes.
that feel a lot like the battle for the souls of mankind as well. But specifically, COVID. I am wondering. My big question for you is, how does it feel like now? Talking about Between Two Fires, and seeing it through the lens of all of this that has happened, especially COVID.
Well, um, I've heard it said that this presidency and the one and the previous one by this president were bad for satire.
Okay.
But I will say that these latest rafts of revelations are bad for horror. How do you write? How do you write horror when you've heard this stuff coming out? Like, do we need devils with this? You know?
Well, I mean, I think Between Two Fires actually does this really well. It for me, it was immediate. It was an immediate feeling of and this is where Joey and I kind of diverged paths, because my feeling was that this battle, it's ongoing and cyclical and happens over and over again. And Joey was like, "No, I think it's radically optimistic because
like
there will be a time after this." And I said,
yeah,
"Yes, but the time after this is also going to suck." So,
it's like
um,
it's you have to, it's gonna suck. Things are gonna suck for a while, but time moves forward, and if you look at the history through the long arc of history, things generally get better. Not it's not a like it's not immediate, right? It's like and there's it's not always linear. Progress isn't always linear, but it's better to be alive today despite everything than it would be 50 years ago, right?
Probably.
Like I think
Probably.
well,
like
where do you fall on this spectrum? You're the author. You're the
Yeah.
author.
we're on both sides,
Yeah.
both parts.
So, where do I fall between things always suck and there's just moments, little glimmers here and there of
Well,
hope?
I mean, so in light of the fact that the pandemic has happened now, and
Yeah.
you've seen a real life, you've gone through an actual, you studied plague, and you got right in there. It's very descriptive. You could feel it. But for people coming to Between Two Fires now for the first time, that's going to be there. COVID's
Yeah.
going to be there. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But how is it for you? How do you see it now?
Ah, I don't really know how to answer that. I don't think my perspective on it has shifted very much. I mean, one thing I could say is that, wow, I got that shit right, I guess, because and I was going from firsthand sources, like I was reading people's accounts of going to markets and keeping a distance from people and wearing cloth over their face and putting money in water and taking it back out of water because they thought that would clean the pestilential air off the coins and things like that. Um,
Which we did.
yeah, yeah. So from that perspective, when the pandemic happened, I did a reading of the book on YouTube during the pandemic.
Wow.
Everybody was cooped up in their house. It wasn't selling much yet. It is just I just got the rights back to it because I wanted to hand sell some merchandise at Ren fairs and make a little extra money. But here we were, all of these actors, and sort of divorced from our live audience communities. Which, by the way, because I'd studied plague, I had a little forward eye on this thing. When I heard about this, I remember when SARS started breaking out. I hadn't really studied it to the depth that I had back in 2003, but I was already, I was a Elizabethan. I read a great deal about the Elizabethan time as well. I did a one-man show about Christopher Marlowe, the contemporary of Shakespeare's, right? And when plague hit London in 1593, all the actors went begging. And yeah, when I started hearing about this disease popping up and really, really breaking out, once I realized it was no longer controlled, I posted on social media, if within my community, saying, because it was winter and fairs were just starting up for the year, and I remember I said, if you've got an opportunity to do something besides Ren fairs this year, I would think about taking it, because I think this is gonna shut us down, and it did.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of turmoil on the festival circuit about whether fairs should stay open or not. A lot of owners wanted to I will not name names, but there were owners who wanted to open their fairs and were angry when people suggested they shouldn't. Um, and there were some heated discussions between entertainers about whether we were going to work at a show that was if it was unwisely opening. It was. Yeah. So rather than how is it? I guess I'm answering a different question than the one you asked. I'm telling you how it was to see the pandemic having written Between Two Fires, which I think was a bigger shift for me than talking about the book again. Now that I've been through the pandemic. Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, because I think when you talk about the book and you think about the book, you go back to the place where you were when you wrote the book,
Hmm.
as the creator of it, right? And readers are coming to it from whatever place they're coming to it from, which
Right.
accounts for the difference of um, reaction, I guess, between Joey and myself. Because I'm talking to Joey and I'm saying, is it all God's play? I mean, angels are part of God, devils are part of God, humans are part of God. Is God just fighting with himself? And Joey said to me,
Right.
look, theologians have debated this
Look,
for
we're gonna
millennia.
solve it.
Two booksellers on a video call,
Two,
probably not
two
gonna do
booksellers and
it.
an author on
I
Yeah.
said,
on a on
I said, let's ask Chris
yeah.
and see what he
Yeah.
says.
Well, Florida man with a boner for medieval history hasn't got a better answer than you've got.
Do you miss Florida?
No.
No.
Mm-mm.
Um,
No, I don't miss it at all. No.
we should go ahead.
I Yeah. Um, I miss St. Petersburg a little bit because that was a good community. That was a good town, and it's been going in great directions lately. It's been changing really for the better, practically since I left. So yeah,
That's a good.
yeah. But as far as Florida overall, no. I mean, I grew up with it, so I don't find palm trees and sand all that special. I'm a little bit more turned on by like autumn leaves and forests and mountains and lakes and things like that. So I guess it's I don't know, but some people from Florida absolutely love the climate and love the culture there. But no, it wasn't really for me.
When you know, you know.
Yeah.
Getting back to humor a little bit, and we're talking about sort of the line between your job as a comedian and the role of humor in your nom in this one too. I found there was a lot of humor, gallows humor, in Between Two Fires, um, layered in with the with all of the rest of it. The horror. I don't. We're gonna. I want to bring up genre in a little bit, um, but how important is that? I think the role of humor is obviously very important to you. and it works. I think it works brilliantly in this novel. Sort of demonstrates the. I think humor is essential for resilience in the
Yes.
face of plague trials of all kinds. Is that something that you think of while you're writing?
Oh yeah. Oh yes. And I asked similar questions of myself when I was creating the world for the Blacktongue Thief, because that is a world that had a plague of a different sort that killed all their horses. This is medieval tech, so that was a big deal. And it's a world where they've been fighting these um, existential wars with goblins who are very smart and who see us as food. That's bleak as hell. So when I started my first couple of stabs at it, I tried third person, but it just felt like grimdark, and I like grimdark, but I didn't want to stay in that place without something to hold on to. And what I found was the voice of Kinch Nishanik, whom I gave full license to be a wise ass and a bit of a shit in the book. So when you have somebody funny with you, they can make really awful shit seem palatable. And I think two of the most trodden paths through true darkness are faith and humor. And boy, the people who have both, I certainly envy them. But I tend to have more humor.
I think that humor, you see it in times of the greatest struggle, for faith, or for people to hold on. You see humor, irony, and that's why it's always so grim when it feels like irony is dead for the millionth time.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Can I tell you one of the most interesting, memorable insults I ever did was at the Scarborough Renaissance Fair in Dallas, and there was these people who came up and they had a picture of a guy, and it was about their age, and they said our friend died, and we'd like you to roast him. And I was like, can you show me a picture of you guys hanging out on social media so I know he's really your friend? And they did, and I said, okay, yeah, yeah, I'll do that. And damn if it wasn't the most cathartic thing. I mean,
Mm.
they were laughing so hard, and some of them were crying, and I felt pretty moved by the whole thing too. And I was saying we're just awful shit about him. I can't remember much of it now, but it was it was bad, um, but it was funny, and it was, I guess it was what the moment called for, and I was glad to be able to serve in that way.
And then
I
like
feel that the humor in Between Two Fires, for me, was I thought it was brilliant the way it was done. I think Thomas has many, many, many funny lines and many reactions. Even Delphine, who is the personification of innocence and divinity in a lot of ways. Um, but one of and of course Pierre Mathieu has also lots of funny lines. While they're going through this like unbelievably grim landscape,
Yeah.
and confronting these unbelievably grim things. But one of my favorite characters in the novel is the dwarf who's crucified that they come across.
Right.
I
Right.
love this character because they're like, well, here's a dwarf on a cross. He's got a crown of thorns on. He's only tied to it. He's not actually nailed to it. And so they help him out by bringing him down. And he's like, no, no.
my
They,
job.
they think
What are
they
you
think
doing?
they're
You're
helping him
messing
out. They're
me.
not
You're
helping him
messing.
out.
Like this is. I'm at work. What are you doing?
What he says was, "I can't farm, I can't plow, I'm not going to be anybody's husband, but I can suffer. This is what I can give. This is what I can do. Let me do it."
Yeah, which is a very poignant statement, but it's delivered through this very sort of, funny situation that they're in, and Thomas is like, "So whatever then, okay, fine, I'm gonna
Right.
slap you, I'll slap you back up." And we
And
have an
then
Italian talking about, the the dead, the dead from the plague, and being buried on top of each other with all of the dirt, and saying that they've gone to the lasagna, which is hilarious. but also very descriptive and accurate.
I believe I got that from a first-person source. I believe somebody did say that.
But back to the dwarf, though.
Back to the
Uh,
dwarf.
does is that dwarf? Does he come back? Do we see him in the world of Blacktongue Thief? Because there is a scene.
It's not the same person.
It's not. I mean, it feels like. Wait a minute. There's like, I know it's not like the same guy, but it
No,
feels
well,
like
no,
there's
and their personalities are very different. I mean, the guy on the cross wanted to suffer. Hans wanted to enjoy himself. Hans was a hedonist.
it's the payoff,
Yeah.
right? I don't know.
All dwarfs are not created equal, Joey.
But
Um,
about Kinch, though, about when you said, because you did the audiobook for Blacktongue Thief, and when I listened to that and I heard, because when an author is reading the book, it can go two ways.
Yes, it
It can
can.
go it can go one way, which is not so great, and then but it's also can be really great too, because there's a there's gifted orators in the world, and not all authors are that. Uh, and so when I heard your name was like narrated by Christopher Buehlman, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give this a shot. Let's see. And then you perform it in such a amazing accent the whole way through. And I actually that was I was like, is this guy actually Irish? Do I have to look him up? And I did look you up, and I was like, no, you're from Florida. That's crazy. But but it was his voice is really really a unique one among fantasy in general. I think just that kind of like acerbic, too smart for his own good, but also knows it at the same time, and he also knows who he is, and that's like very
Yes.
unique. It's so
Yes.
unique about fantasy heroes, main characters. I don't want to say he's the hero because he's the point of view. He's technically the sidekick. He's like brought
Yeah.
along. He's dragged along on somebody else's adventure, which I also thought was such a cool idea, like cool concept of like, hey, this person isn't the hero. They're not even the main character really of this story, but they're a small person in a bigger world.
And he's not even a great thief. He's a good thief.
No,
He's
he
decent.
sucks. I mean, he's got
You
he's
know?
got tricks, but he's not.
He's a pretty good pickpocket. He can climb like a bastard. And those are not small things. But yeah, he's no Locke Lamora. I mean, he's not out here
No.
running
Gentleman
brilliant
bastard here.
heists. No, he's just a little prank of the guild. He's got a little bit of magic.
Joey
then-
mentioned fantasy, characters in fantasy, which leads me to I really wanted to talk to you about genre actually, and how you view genre in general and how you're writing, because you have been described as protean. Um,
I had to look that up.
yeah.
My only experience of the word is through Vampire the Masquerade. So,
Mm.
Well, and also, well, for me, protean always meant Proteus 4, which was the evil AI that took over everything in Demon Seed, which is Dean Koontz, one of his very early novels.
that's
Ah.
a deep cut.
Um,
Wow.
An amazing, cheesy but brilliant 70s movie with Julie Christie, which they adapted. But this is like proto AI, and anyway, his name's Proteus. But protean, versatile, changeable, lots of different directions, and typically publishers of genre don't love this in authors, because they like to keep them within certain genres, and when you start exiting, they don't like it. I think there's a lot of crossover between horror, fantasy, and sort of there's a lot of blending of genres now, and a lot of subgenres like we're seeing in romantasy, etc. But I didn't read Between Two Fires as horror necessarily. and I feel like you kind of transcend genre in a lot of ways, through the depth of your characters and theme. So, do you see it as they have you moved? Do you feel like you've actually moved to a different genre, or are you just writing what you write and let the chips fall where they may?
I think the latter. I mean, I knew it was a hybrid while I was writing it, because it's, it's historical fiction, and it's horror, and it's got fantastical elements to it, and it's got theological elements to it. So there's a lot going on there, and I don't think there is one label for that book, which was part of its problem initially. Readers didn't know what it was. Nobody, the cover didn't tell you, the title didn't tell you, Um, no, and and that's why it took a long time to find its audience. But now it is finding it, and it's a good feeling. It was
Right, and I
it was heartbreaking. Frankly, it was heartbreaking because I was so proud of that book when I wrote it. I loved it. One of the reasons I wasn't really able to answer your question about how is it now coming back to this book, because I never really left it. Like more than any book I've written, except perhaps The Daughter's War, this one has remained. I internalized it a great deal. Those characters are still, in some ways, very much alive to me.
I felt that reading it. I completely, just right to the heart. And so I felt like it transcended. I didn't. The monsters that I had absolutely no trouble, um, understanding those as, just sort of the embodiment of theological concepts, or
Mm.
whatever it is to you. And I also felt, Delphine, uh, just a wonderful and subtle, blending of kind of divine concepts and human girl. And I think, go ahead.
That was a challenge. That was a
Hmm.
challenge. When I fully realized what she was. No spoilers. When I fully realized what was going on with her, um, I, I had to still make her a who, not a what. And I had to remember. I had a friend who a kid, a girl who was like 11 at the time, and I saw her one day, um, making a dress, like a little apron, and putting stones in it, and then throwing the stones out. And I had Delphine do that once. Like I didn't. I was like, I didn't know a kid that age still did that. That that's like physical child play. I didn't know. So yeah, and I asked the mom some questions too. I said, tell me some things about having an 11-year-old kid. Like, what are some physical things that they'll do? You know?
And I also just the the true grit kind of concept of gruff
Yeah,
older man and unflappable little girl is just like there's something primal about that where it's like
it's true.
you've got this like tough dude who is doesn't have time for little girl stuff, but at the same time nobody else is there, you know. And
And her dad's a lawyer, so she's
yeah,
not just doing little girl stuff. She's doing precocious little girl stuff, and she's doing Socratic little girl stuff. Yeah,
I love when he sees her after a while, and he's like, "There's something different about you. What is it? What is it?" He is. You look different. What is it?
right,
it's only been
right.
like 2 weeks, but like
Did you get
a lot
did you get
Yeah,
your
happens.
braces off?
she gets your braces off. Very funny.
The interplay between them is great. But I was, fascinated by Delphine. I loved her because she's multidimensional. So I think you did an
Yes.
amazing job with that. She really is. You do see her as the person, the who, and sometimes even battling with what she's sort of directed to do.
Mm.
And, um, I I don't want to make any spoilers, but at some point she wants to bring somebody back to life. There's a lot of dead people, let's face it, in the novel. And
Spoiled for
there's a
choice,
lot
as we say on
she-
Elevenses.
yeah, and I think and then she realizes that it may be within her power to sort of kind of breathe life back into somebody, and she goes for it, and she hears, no, you're not ready for that. Not you can't, but not
I
you're
like
not
the not
ready for
yet. I
that.
liked that not yet.
Yeah.
That felt that like you. It felt hopeful in uh, a way that there's not a lot of hope in the book, but the
Yes. And one thing that Martin does very well in the Song of Fire and Ice series is he starves you of hope. He gives you a little hope and then pulls it away, and gives you a little hope and then drops you into hell again and again and again. And it's incredibly engaging and frustrating. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. But I was aware of that sort of drought of hope building up, and I when I did those sort of biblical sections in between books, um, and I always ended it with the Lord made no answer, and I got goosebumps, and I had a feeling readers probably would too when the part was just the Lord made answer.
This is why, I mean, this is why I loved it, and I feel for me that really transcended genre for me, and I felt like, in fact, we were speaking with our publisher's rep from Princeton University Press, and we were talking about that we would be doing this interview, and we were talking about Between Two Fires with her, and she was like, "That sounds very interesting. I'm going to look that up. I'm going to buy that."
she
Not
did it like
typically.
right in front of us,
Right, yeah.
started
But
typing.
just, yeah,
It's like
yeah. And I really feel I'm very excited for the re-release of Between Two Fires, because I feel like you'll have, more, not necessarily very strict genre readers. I've read some of the discussion about Between Two Fires on Reddit, and you have, a lot of fans on Reddit, and a lot of very intense and granular conversation about what exactly is going on,
Mm-hmm.
um, and very long passages, master's thesis of, breaking stuff down, which is great. But I think that it operates on many different levels. Between Two Fires, you can read it as sort of a granular horror slash fantasy history. You can also come to it open with no expectations of genre elements, like I did, and have it hit you on all of these levels. But I do want to ask you also, though, speaking of genre and expectations and the character of Delphine, Daughter's War, which is your most recent book, is told from the point of view of Galva, another really amazingly well written female character. What's the line between Delphine and Galva, do you think?
Well, the first difference is violence. Delphine's command the first thing the first directive she issues her protector, Tomas, is don't kill him, don't kill anyone else again. She means that to her core, and that's at the core of Christianity. Really, is pacifism, and I was interrogating Christianity with this book. I was saying, okay, what does it mean to turn the other cheek? What does it mean to not be violent? And the biggest, and I know we're talking about the Daughter's War, but you did ask about Delphine, so yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So this is not a digression. Just checking with myself, because I will go down a rabbit hole real deep and fast. Um, I sort of encapsulated it in this. I think there's a scene where Tomas goes into a bathhouse, and there are a bunch of English longbowmen, the people who kill his lord, really, the kind of person who crushed the French at the Battle of Crécy. And these guys are in the tub with prostitutes, and they're naked, and their weapons and their armor are away from them. And Tomas walks in fully armored, and he's got his sword out, and he could have just probably killed all of them before the first one could have gotten out of the tub, and he knew it. And he remembered what Delphine said, and for that reason, he stayed his hand. He didn't kill those men. He turned around and left, and not one of them didn't know that they were dead men. And then there's a scene later where the fact that he did that becomes very important in events. I don't want to give too big of a spoiler, but there is a hand. There's clearly a hand behind the way things work out, and that mercy was expected of him, and that had he not shown it, things wouldn't have gone so well for him later.
And then immediately before that, Delphine says, "We'll pay for that. There'll be a cost," because he does kill somebody that he shouldn't have, or he's justified in it, but he went against the directive, right? And so he took a life, and
on a river.
Yeah, and her saying it straight up, like, there will be a cost. Like, I don't want you to do this. You can still do it because it's not a, it's not a explicit command that you are forbidden. You still have your choice. You still have your will, and you still have, like, you have justice on your side. Because
and she's just a little girl at the end of the day.
Yeah,
just what's she gonna do? Yeah.
But when it happens, and she goes, "We'll pay for that. We'll all pay for that. All of us. Like, there will be a cost," and that's such a poignant part, because you have the echo of it immediately after. And in the book is balanced in that way, where you have I also just love stories about violent men learning to not be violent.
Yes.
So
and
this brings me back to Galva, though, what you were saying.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Let me just. You love stories of violent men learning not to be violent. You love that story because that is the story that will save our species if it is to be saved.
Yes.
That's the story.
Exactly. So now we have Galva, though. And so
Galva,
how does that work into that?
Yeah, well, she's very different than Delphine, except that she's got certain motivations, and she's got internal. They're both very powerfully internally directed. They've got what they will do and what they won't do, and what you should do and what you should not do. They both have that. But Galva's a warrior in a warrior society. She doesn't worship a prophet and a rabbi from 2,000 years ago who tells people that it's okay to die, it's okay to get hurt, it's okay to have no money. That's what you're supposed to do. She is in service to a goddess of death, and she is living at a time where humanity itself is threatened with extinction. So it's got to fight. It's got to fight. So she's a killer.
So does that reflect a change in your own worldview?
It reflects exploration. Neither one of these things is a declaration. I'm an agnostic. I do wrestle with when is it time to. My go-to is nonviolence, but I'm not a pacifist. Not 100%. I think there is a time to defend yourself and defend your family, and perhaps defend your country. I think that those are very valid impulses. They don't square well, I don't think, with red letter Christianity, which is a Christian struggle. And it seems like a lot of Christians don't bother with that struggle. But it seems to me an inherent contradiction. to talk about Christian soldiers. I know that's probably going to make some people upset, but I mean, historically speaking, there was a time when Christianity was monastic, and you would retreat, like and it wasn't until the Crusades that changed. And why did that change? Who were these Christians who went on the Crusades? Well, some of them were Vikings 3 generations before, and I'm talking about the Normans, which was the very, very violent strain that was going all through Europe, France, England, Sicily, even Russia. But when Pope Urban II makes his call to go to the Holy Land and to free Jerusalem from these people who have begun to kill Christian pilgrims, that's where this always comes from. He talks about, can't you see Christ there with his sword beckoning us on to help him? And he's taking the image of Christ with the sword from Revelations, but he's also making a bit of a war god out of him, isn't he? He's sort of making Christ look just a little like Thor or Odin there. And I think that was sort of the beginning of it. The idea that you can get blessed to go kill people as long as they're the right people.
Right. Which a thought that carries on, I would say. Yeah, exactly.
Has only grown stronger.
Yeah. So I think, but Galva seems to, it's sort of the, not your mother's Delphine then.
No.
Basically.
No, there's not much of a struggle there for her. I mean, she's living in a time when this is what you have to do to live. This is what you have to do. Now, it is a different thing to kill fellow humans, and there is a bit more of a struggle around that when the time comes. But no, they're very different characters, and I'm exploring very different questions in those 2 books.
Right. So I'm very curious about what will be next. what's on the horizon?
Well, I'm pleased to tell you that I've just finished all but the little tinkery bits. I finished the 3rd draft of The Thrice-Bound Fool, and it's coming out in October. And I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of it. I did some things that felt risky, but you have to, don't you, to write compelling fiction. I think and hope it will be that.
Can you tell us anything else about it, or?
Yeah.
Whose perspective is it from? Because we have Kinch and we have Galva so far.
It's Kinch.
Kinch again. Okay.
We go back to Kinch. Yeah. But Galva was, I heard someone else refer to her as a black box in The Blacktongue Thief. And she was, because she was seen through Kinch's perspective. And she's not a talker. So we have Kinch's impressions of her, but we don't know her. And that's why I had to write The Daughter's War, because I didn't either. I needed to discover her in depth.
About that.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a friend that she will only read fantasy or sci-fi written by women authors.
I understand.
And you're not. Everybody says that when I tell them this. Everyone says, "Yeah, I understand."
I do.
But she will accept a male author if I recommend it, because it goes through that. I'm the filter.
That's how powerful Joey is with his recommendations.
Okay, Joey.
And she read Daughter's War and she lost her mind about it. And I said, because this is the thing I say about when I'm talking about the book, is that at times I would forget that Galva isn't real, that this didn't happen to somebody, that this book was written by somebody else. Some guy wrote this book, but the way that you have that Galva is written is just such a genuine point of view of somebody who feels real, and that part of that was what made these 2 books so special. The Blacktongue Thief and Daughter's War so special to me, is that it's the first time in a long time that I felt that I was reading something like new and different and next.
Mm.
And the last time I got that feeling was when I read um, Patrick Rothfuss for the first time. When I read
Mm.
Name of the Wind, and I was like, this book is telling me, because it was really one of the very first fantasy novels that was legitimately literary in its approach, right? And that in a, you talk about it now, and it's a little dated because it came out in 2006, 2007, around there. And but for that time, that was revolutionary. That's there's a lot of things have come out since then that have been part of that tradition of making more literary fantasy, and that's great. Uh, but like there's a few books that I've read that have been, when I read them, it's like there's a before and then there's an after in my
Mm.
my life personally, but I think in the wider fantasy conversation. And one of those is China Meowville Perdido Street Station, which is just bent my mind. Like, I think about the book every day. Like,
Mm.
I there's something I see it everywhere, anytime, just comes up in my brain all the time. And then it's Name of the Wind, which is just made me think like, oh, fantasy can be about more than just dragons and wizards and swords and etc. And you can play with that. And then when I got to these books, it it made me have another one of those revelations where fantasy can say more. Fantasy can you can have a fantasy novel that it's fantasy, but it's also deeply about something else, and that's exploring something incredibly important. And for Blacktongue Thief, it's trauma to me. Like, I think this, because the war has ended, and all these people that are just trying to like figure out how to move forward and live with the enemy in this town. And they're part of it.
Yeah.
They're the enemy, and they are literally the enemy. They have no compassion, no mercy, nothing. And then, like, people make bad decisions because they are traumatized, and that happens. And you see
And
somebody.
not to interrupt
Yeah.
you, Joey, but trauma, I think, is key here at processing trauma, and that I think what you're saying, that fantasy can be more, that's maybe what I was driving to this entire time, Chris, is that I feel like, um,
Yeah,
to
we
me,
go.
it sort of transcends very clearly the fantasy elements, horror elements, all of these things. But I feel like, helping us process trauma, I think,
Yeah,
basically is what it comes down to,
yeah.
and that's what Between Two Fires was for me. And hopefully that is something that you, well, not hopefully. I mean, these things
and
can happen anyway. Sometimes when after you write a book, then it has its own life after you, which
and
I'm sure you've discovered.
yeah, and then
Right.
I
Dog
mean, I
War to me was about grief, and the because the beauty of loving something that you will lose, and the worthiness of that. And so these two books, the trauma and these grief books, make it more, and that it's like, that's why I'm a fan. That's why I've
ah,
been selling these
thanks.
books, and I've been selling them to people who don't normally read fantasy, and I'd be like, sure, we have all this going on, but it's a beautiful book. It's a beautiful book about all these other things. It just has women training giant birds to fight goblins. Who cares
Yeah,
about that? That's set dressing. It's
and I had to borrow something from antiquity, too, in that book. I mean, the scene with Galva and the horse at the end is very much Odysseus and his dog.
So many Easter eggs, and I don't, it's hard to say Easter eggs, when talking about your books, because I mean it's
Easter
basically
not
all Easter
happening.
eggs, I mean, but there's so many points of reference. Your research shows through your knowledge of different cultures, languages, history, all of that. Those all come into play, I feel like, in your work, and they're So there's something for every reader who is familiar with all of these elements, you know. So
Thank you.
so we're going to let you get back to your life now.
Hey,
um,
I gotta
again, we're very very grateful for you for joining us today. Appreciate you taking the time, and we are really looking forward to seeing you at Diesel on Thursday, March 5th. You'll be there at
that sounds
6:30.
right. Yep.
Yeah, Thursday at 6:30 p.m. All of the details are available on our website, www.dieselbookstore.com. We look forward to seeing you in person, talking about Between Two Fires, Blacktongue Thief, Daughter's War, and on. So we wish you safe travels,
Thank
and
you.
we will see you very soon.
Well, I am grateful for your interest, and I very much enjoyed our talk. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Chris.
Okay.
And thank you everybody for joining us. We will see you again next week here on Elevenses. Happy reading, everyone.